Supplies for dot art. We're doing the rainbow dot art, so today we're going to use some rainbow colors. You don't have to have all the colors I have, but however many you have in the rainbow is going to be fine. If you just have primary colors, you can mix the in-between colors. Okay, so I have yellow, orange, red, purple, blue. I have like an aqua, green, white, and black. I have a paintbrush and some water. That's going to paint the background. A canvas. You can use paper, cardboard, poster board, whatever you have at home. You need a paper towel to wipe off your tools in between. Something to draw with, whether it's a pencil, a pen, marker, something to make the lines on the canvas. And then I'm just going to ask that you have 3 different dotting tools. So I'm going to actually use some different size dowels today, and then this little dotting tool here. But you can use a pencil eraser, you can use a toothpick, you can use a Q-tip, just something 3 different sizes. Hi, I'm Melissa from Paint Party LI, and I will be painting with you today rainbow dot art. All right, so we're going to get started with a very easy step. You're going to wet your brush, get a little water on there, and we're just going to give it a nice thin coat of water from the top down to the bottom. This is only if you're using a canvas. So if you are using paper or cardboard or wood or anything else, you won't need to wet it. Only if you're using canvas. We're just priming it, getting it ready for the paint. Okay, so now that we have that nice easy step done, we're going to mix some very pale blue, and we're just going to do a nice coat in the background. Okay, so just taking that pale blue, we want it to be really, really, really light. So you're taking some white paint with very, very little blue paint in there, giving it a pale background. This way, when we do the dots, if a little bit of the background shows through, we'll have a color back there. It'll look kind of like a blue sky in the background of our rainbow. Okay, a very nice thin coat. You don't need to go heavy with the paint at all. Going from the top down to the bottom here. Again, it can be a little streaky, that's totally fine. Just doing a very pale coat of blue. Taking a little tiny bit of blue paint with my white and just brushing it in. That'll all kind of blend together. It's okay if it's a little bit streaky. Finishing off the whole canvas with a very pale blue. Okay, so once you have that, you either want to blow dry or you want to give it a few minutes to dry before we start putting all the little guidelines on there. Okay, so I'm going to blow dry mine real quick. Okay, so I just hit that with a hairdryer real quick just to get the moisture out of it, get it nice and dry. You don't need to do it for very long. You won't need the paintbrush again. You're going to grab your 3 dotting tools, whatever 3 you choose, just as long as you have a bigger one, a medium, and a small. Again, you can use little wooden dowels, you can use a pencil eraser, you can use a toothpick, Q-tip, whatever you have handy. We're going to start with the big one, and we're going to start by doing dots of each color in sections to do the rainbow. So I'm going to mark this off so we have somewhere to keep them in. And first I'm going to do kind of a cloud shape up in the corner. Okay, a little puffy cloud shape. And now I'm going to draw a line. Actually, I'll do it in Sharpie so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so we have a little cloud shape, however you want it to be, up in the corner. Now you're going to count your colors and see around the edge how many colors you have. Again, you can mix your red and blue to make purple. You can mix your red and yellow to make orange. You can mix your blue and yellow to make green and do all your in-between colors, however many colors you want to do. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're not counting the black and white. The white's going to be up in the corner. So I want to give 7 sections. And when I do this, I'm going to give it a little wiggly line that comes out. And I'm going to make 7 sections for my colors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the last one will be 7. Okay, so now that I have those sections, I'm going to start with the red, and I'm going to work my way down to the purple. So I'm using the biggest tool first. Very easy, you just want to dip in a little bit of paint. If you have a whole lot on there, you just want to wipe it at the edge of the plate. Okay, and I'm going to do as many large red dots in that first section that I can fit. Now you don't have to do them all on top of each other, because in between we're going to use the smaller sizes to kind of fill in some of the empty space. So I'm just going to keep dipping and wiping that off so that there's not a whole ton of paint on there when I do it. Okay, doing some nice, anywhere you can fit those bigger dots. That's, I think, about it for me. I'm gonna go back in there later with my smaller ones. Okay, so in between, you're gonna wipe it off on the paper towel. I'm gonna go on to the next color. So now I have orange. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of that orange. Again, if you don't have orange, just mix your red and yellow. Now I'm going to start to do lots of dots in this one. This section's a little bit bigger. Okay, going all the way through, leaving some room for those smaller dots in between. I'm using a pretty small canvas. If you end up using a piece of paper or something like that, you really don't need anything more than an 8 by 10, but if you decide to go real large, that's fine too. Just remember you'll be doing a lot of dots in there to fill it in. Okay, so I'm filling in my orange with as many big ones as possible without having them touch each other. If they butt up against each other, that's fine. You just don't want them overlapping each other. Okay, so I'm taking my orange, filling all the way in that little orange section. Next, we're going to work on yellow. So I'm just gonna wipe that off. Start filling them all in. You may want to mix a little bit of white with your yellow. That'll help cover a little bit. So I've got some yellow on there. I'm going to start my dotting here. Again, just filling up this section. Until I get all the big ones in this whole section that I can fit. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going with that. You don't have to use an easel. You can lay it right flat on the table. That's fine too. Just make sure you put a little covering down on your table. Paints I'm using are acrylic, but you may want to use whatever kind of paint you have at home if you're doing this with your own supplies. You could even use different size markers or pens. If you don't have paint at all, you could use some food coloring. That'll be fun. Okay, so I'm just filling up all the bigger yellow dots on here that I can fit. Moving on to green next. So I'm just going to wipe this off on my paper towel. Going on to green. I'm just making some nice rainbow colors. Again, if you don't have all of them, that's fine at home. If you have one of my kits where you have it, then it will be included. Okay, so I'm just kind of filling in the nice full circle going through and filling in all of the bigger dots first. Like I said, we'll go back in with some of the smaller dots and really start to fill it in. So I'm doing the biggest ones first. Okay, wiping that off. I need a couple of paper towels for that. I have a nice, like an aqua color, and the aqua I made by just mixing the blue and the green together. So that's a fun color. May not be the most traditional color in a rainbow, but I like that aqua blue color. And it's a nice mix between the green and the blue. Okay, so I'm just filling these in with the biggest dots first. If you're not moving at the same pace as me, that's fine. You can go ahead and pause it if you need to while I'm working on this and finishing it up. You can pause it and work at your own pace and then hit play again. Okay, so I have basically as many dots as I possibly can for the biggest size here. Again, gonna wipe it off on my paper towel. Moving on to the blue and then the purple next. Okay, so I'm doing my biggest size dowel first, filling it in. Just go ahead and fill in all that blue, the biggest dots. Again, they're not overlapping, just kind of next to each other, as many as you can fit in that little space. I'm gonna fill that one in a little bit more. And I'm just gonna wipe it off, going on to purple next. Okay, I have kind of a small section for here, so I won't need a ton of these. I'm gonna kind of stagger them though, so they're not all just in a row. Okay, again, they can touch each other, that's fine. Just try not to have too many of them overlap each other. Okay, so I have the purple ones in there. I'm gonna wipe this off. The last one with the big dowel that I'm going to do is the white ones for the cloud. I'm just taking the white paint with my biggest size dowel, putting as many as I can fit into this cloud shape. Okay, just filling that in, wiping it off. So right now we have a very simple feeling dot art. It's actually called Pointillism, as you're painting with dots instead of with a paintbrush. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to a smaller one, and you'll see that my first one was much bigger. Okay, and this is where I'll start to fill in some of the in-between pieces with each color. So I'm starting back with red. And some of the spots where I couldn't fit before that big one, I can now fit this smaller one. Okay, except I have as many of those as I can fit. I'm gonna wipe that off, go on to the orange. Again, take your time as you're going through. I'm just showing you how it's done. If you need a little more time to complete it, that's fine. You just pause the video and then come back to me. Taking that medium-sized dowel and just dotting here and there in some of those. Okay, so I'm just filling in all of the little dots in between. I did the orange, now I'm going to do some yellow. And I have the yellow here, and I'm just anywhere where you can fit that size, basically, is how that works. And we're just going to keep going down until we get to that small size. filling in all those little spots. You can have a little bit of that background color showing through, and that's fine. That's why we have it there. Okay, so I'm just picking any little spot that I can fit that medium-sized dowel, and I'm dotting it in. Again, when you're doing the yellow, if you want to mix a little bit of white in there, sometimes it makes it a little easier for seeing them on that background color. Okay, so I'm just kind of dabbing here and there, filling in. All right, I think I have as many as I can fit of the yellow. Wiping that off, going on to the green next. Again, with that medium dowel, just kind of filling it in, whichever your medium size one is, that's what you're going to use. Going all the way through, kind of starting to really fill in some of those empty spots. If they're going to touch, I prefer them to just barely touch each other rather than overlap, but if you do a few where you overlap on accident, that's totally fine. Okay, I think I have at this point all I can do of that, so I'm going to wipe it off. And I'm going to go into my aqua, doing the same thing, just kind of dabbing here and there where I can fit that medium one. All right, so we're painting actually with a technique called Pointillism, which is basically dot art, using dots to create a picture. Okay, let's see if I can squeeze a couple more up here to break up some of those big ones. There we go, just wiping it off. Next color is blue. A little blue in there. Just doing those dots here and there in between the bigger ones. Wiping it off. Switching to purple. This one I don't have a ton of room, so I'm just going to do a few, and it'll probably mostly get covered up by the little tiny dots. Wiping that off, I'm going to go back and do the same thing with the white for the cloud. Any little spots I can fit in there, kind of in between those big dots. Wiping it off, switching to my smallest one, which is this little guy. Again, you can use a toothpick or something tiny if you want to. Now, I'm going to go back in, and these are going to be much smaller little dots, and you don't have to do like 1,000 of them, but you want to kind of start to fill in any of the little empty spots that you have left that the other dowel couldn't hit. So I'm going to do like 2 or 3 in each little spot where I do it. Okay, starting to just fill those in with each color, working your way all the way down. Okay, again, it's okay to see a little bit of the blue. How many you do of these tiny ones is going to be up to you, how really full you want it. You can really get carried away, which is nice. Just kind of lose time, dotting, dotting, dotting in there, filling in on some of the empty spots. Every time I do one of the little tiny ones, I usually do 2 or 3 around it too, because they can usually fit. Okay, so I'm wiping that off. Again, going to the orange next. Just gonna dot a few. If you can see, I'll move it a little bit closer so you can see some of those tiny dots going in there. Okay, anywhere you have a little empty space, you're just gonna do a few little dots in there. Filling in our little dot art rainbow. All in there. Working our way through all the colors. And you can really do a ton of these, or you can do a few. It's really up to you how much coverage you want. Okay, again, I'm working my way through with each color. Doing the orange and then the yellow. Just any place you have big empty spots, you'll go in there and do 2 or 3 little tiny dots. Again, if you're doing it with a toothpick, same thing. Just a few here and there. Okay, wiping that off. Working my way through the colors. Just a few here and there of the yellow. Going right through all those little empty spots with the tiniest tool and just dabbing a few, 2 or 3 here and there, starting to fill in those little areas. Okay, once you have that, wiping it off, going on to the next color, working your way through all of the colors that we have here. So again, with that tiny one, it's easier to fill in a little spot if you just kind of do 2 or 3 little dots. You could even do 4 or 5 depending on how big the spot is or how tiny your last little dotting tool is. If you have the kit that you got from me, you'll have a little dotting tool that has 2 sides to it, and you can use either one of those little sides, doesn't matter. Just need 3 basic different sizes as you go through. And if you can't really find 3, you could always do 2 or 3. You know, it doesn't have to be 3. Okay, so I'm going through and I'm dotting lots of empty spaces here. Filling in my dot art rainbow. You can always go back to it if you see some more empty spots. Wiping it off in between, getting into the aqua color now. Just kind of dotting little empty spots here with just a few dots, just quick little dot, dot, dot to fill it in. Right, until you have not a whole lot of that background showing through, just a little bit peeking through those colors. Okay, and wiping off in between, I'm going into blue next. And I'm just gonna go in and dot in between. In the little empty spots here and there, some little dots to kind of fill in that background. Almost done with this step. Okay, I'm going to wipe that off, move on to purple. My purple section's pretty small, so I won't need a ton of them in there. Kind of hitting some of the empty spots that are there. Getting in between some of those bigger dots where you have a little bit of that light blue showing through. All right, and then you're going to wipe that off. I'm going to work on the white next. Okay, so this is now again just the little dots. I'm going to do a bunch of those in there, filling in some of the empty spots that I left in between those bigger dots. Okay, once you have those dots in there, you are completely done. All right, so today we did a rainbow dot art using 3 different tools. I used 7 different colors, or actually 8 if you include the white, but you can use any that you have. So if you don't have all of these, if you don't have the kit that I supplied, you're going to just use what you've got, and you can mix the primary colors together. Again, the red and the yellow are going to make the orange. The yellow and blue are going to make green. Your green and blue will make that teal color, that aqua color, if you want to add that one in there. Not so super traditional rainbow color, but I like to use it. And then if you need to make a purple, you're going to mix the red and blue together. Dotting throughout, easy stuff. All right, thanks so much. I hope you had some fun painting with me today. Bye.